Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world, with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to touchdown Ghana today as part of his FiveNation visit, exchange of historical ties and opening up of new windows of cooperation in various sectors on the agenda. External Affairs Minister Dr. SDRF successfully concludes Quad Foreign Ministers meeting, announces launch of Quad Critical Minerals Initiative, leaders condemn Pahalgam terror attack, call for justice. Australian airline Qantas investigates a significant cyber attack. Hackers infiltrate system containing sensitive personal data on 6 million customers. Qantas says no impact on safety or operations. And in sports, India all set to take on England in second of the 5-match test series at Edgbaston in Birmingham. Good afternoon to all the viewers joining us at this afternoon broadcast. To begin with the latest, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has embarked on a 5-nation visit to Ghana, Trinidad and Tobago, Argentina, Brazil and Namibia. Ghana, the first leg of the visit, will be Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first ever bilateral visit to Ghana and first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Ghana after 3 decades. On the 2nd and the 3rd of July, Prime Minister Modi is visiting Ghana at the invitation of President John Dramani Mahama. In his departure statement, the Prime Minister highlighted Ghana as a valued partner in the global south and plays an important role in the African Union and the economic community of West African states. Further, Prime Minister Modi said he looked forward to his exchanges aimed at further deepening our historical ties and opening up of new windows of cooperation, including in the areas of investment, energy, health, security, capacity building and development partnership. The Prime Minister will also be addressing the Parliament of Ghana. On the 3rd and 4th of July, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will pay an official visit to TNT, which is Trinidad and Tobago, which is the first bilateral visit at the Prime Ministerial level to Trinidad and Tobago since the year 1999. In the third leg of the visit, Prime Minister will be on an official visit to Argentina, which is the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 57 years. From there, he will travel to Brazil to attend the 17th BRICS Summit on the 6th and 7th of July, followed by a state visit. In the last leg of the tour, Prime Minister will embark on a state visit to Namibia, the first visit of PM Modi and the third ever Prime Ministerial visit from India to Namibia. In the run-up to the visit, India's High Commissioner to Ghana, Manish Gupta, highlighted the growing strength of India and Ghana relationship. He noted that Ghana remains a top destination for Indian investors with nearly 900 projects set up over the last 2 decades. DD India's Taposh Bhattacharya has more. Take a look.
Joining me is India's High Commissioner to Ghana, Manish Gupta, to talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 5-nation tour, and the first stop is in Ghana. Sir, how do you see Prime Minister's visit and how that is expected to be a game changer for both countries?
It's a great privilege that Honorable Prime Minister is going to visit Ghana for the first time. So this is going to be a defining moment for this partnership. India-Ghana ties that are deep-rooted with a very rich historical legacy, and especially in West Africa, Ghana has been a long-standing partner. The energy on the streets here, especially with the Indian community, that everybody is so excited with the visit.
What are the key areas where you believe that both countries can work there?
Between India and Ghana, we have extensive complementarities between our two economies. Ghana is quite rich in natural and mining resources. On our part, we bring strong capabilities in the manufacturing, IT, technical service sectors, which this country needs the most. Between India and Ghana, one thing you realize, as countries of the global south, we have young demographics, and secondly, tech is going to play a big role as we shape our economies for the future.
People have been talking about Ghana becoming the next oil exporter. How do you see India can take advantage of that?
Ghana is already exporting a lot of oil and gas. So there, I think it offers us an opportunity to go enter into this lithium mining sector, and where we can craft win-win outcomes for both the sides.
There's a lot of investment from India in Ghana. Could you share some of the details? What is the amount that we have been talking about?
The Indian companies have invested close to $2 billion in this country in over 900 projects, spanning the areas of agriculture, manufacturing, IT, steel, pharmaceutical sector, to name a select few. And these have been very ably complemented by the government-to-government development cooperation framework. The Indian government has invested close to another $1 billion through grants, lines of credit, and buyer's credit program.
Prime Minister Modi's visit in Ghana is expected to be a game changer when it comes to both countries, and expected to be a massive. It will give a massive boost to the South-South cooperation and for the relationship between India and Ghana. With camera person Rakesh, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Accra, Ghana.
In a groundbreaking step towards food self-sufficiency, Ghana has launched a climate resilient feed initiative in collaboration with India's Arima Farms and CSIR Crops Research Institute. With wheat imports crossing $400 million annually, this project aims to cut dependency and boost local farming. DD India's Taposh spoke exclusively to Arima Farms MD Salai Manikam, who highlighted how South-South cooperation is driving agricultural innovation. She also shared how many Ghanaians admire and follow Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership. A new chapter in India-Ghana partnership is being sown.
Wheat has been introduced to Ghana by them, along with CSIR, one of India's prominent institute. Isn't it, ma'am?
Yes, please. So we have brought wheat after a research of 2 years, along with the CSIR, their Crop Research Institute in Kumasi. We thought that was one of the crops which could be indigenously grown here, developed here.
You mentioned the fact that CSIR, one of India's premier institute, was working with you people. Could you shed some light on what was the whole thing was? How many years you guys were working?
We have Arima Farms. We have MOU with CSIR, and we are working jointly in research for few crops. And one of it was wheat, which we have successfully announced in Feb. And we have few other crops which we are developing together. We work there. The CSIR in Ghana has 13 institutes. So we work with various institutes for various aspects of the research.
And now let's go across to Ghana, where DD India's Taposh Bhattacharya will get us the latest from Ground Zero. Good afternoon from India, Taposh. How is Ghana gearing up to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi today?
Very excited. In fact, we spoke to some of the Ghanaian here, and they are all at praise for Prime Minister Modi. The way they say that India has grown in the last decade under Prime Minister Modi's leadership and vision. They want the same kind of thing for India, for Ghana, and with the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they believe that the relation between both the countries will touch a new milestone. There are a lot of MOUs that can take place. In fact, we've been told that at least 3 to 4 MOUs can be signed in this particular visit. Ghana's president is a newly elected president. Mr. Mahama is expected to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the airport. So you can imagine the kind of bonhomie and the level of love that Ghanaians have for Prime Minister Modi and for India. Almost 800 projects currently are in place in Ghana, which are being directly or indirectly being done by India or Indian companies. Apart from that, as you just saw the story that filed, in that wheat was introduced in Ghana. In fact, wheat production in agricultural sector has been introduced by Ghana through the CSIR. That's one of India's premier scientific institute in India. They, along with and a private sector company, they have tried to replicate the model that they had in India, in Ghana. Remember before that, Ghana were they didn't have the production of wheat. They used to import most of that from outside. In fact, entirely their entire wheat consumption used to come from outside. So that's one part of it. When it comes to medical, when it comes to education, India is helping Ghana, and the vice versa, India is expected to get a lot of help from Ghana when it comes to critical minerals, when it comes to oil and other natural resources that Ghana has. So it's a win-win situation for both the country, and it's a classic example of the South-South cooperation that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been talking about. So the first leg, first stop, Ghana, and it's expected to be a major game changer for both the countries in their bilateral relations.
On day one on the agenda, Taposh?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What exactly is expected from day one on the agenda?
So Prime Minister Modi is expected to come to the hotel where we were told that a huge number of Indian diaspora members are waiting to get a glimpse of him. From there, he will be going to the Jubilee Hall, which is a presidential office where we are expected to have a closed door meeting between both the leaders, and at the same time there is expected to be a signing of 3 to 4 MOUs, as I mentioned earlier. Then there will be a press statement on the first day. So that's the the concise gist of what can happen on the first day, and then there will be in the night there will be a press conference by MEA on what happened on the first day. They will give you a summary of that. So that's one of it. On the second day, on third, that is, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to address the Ghana's parliament. So that's another thing that a lot of people are looking forward to. In fact, Ghana's member of parliament, we spoke to some of them. They were very happy. They were very keen to listen to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In fact, Ghana is one of the country in Sahara and West Africa, which is a beacon of democracy in that particular area. It's surrounded by a lot of countries where there is a political upheaval. There is a lot of problem in those countries, but Ghana has shown that they can have a proper parliamentary and democratic institution which is functioning, and both countries take a heart from that. And also the fact that both countries were under British colonial rule, that also had they had a history together. So now both countries are looking to get move towards being a developed country, development nation, and Ghana believe that India has a potential. India has the wherewithal to help Ghana in capacity building, especially when it comes to infrastructure development and human resource development. Deepika.
Thank you so much, Tapur, for joining us from Ghana and bringing us all the latest from ground zero. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Pentagon halts some shipments of air defense missiles and other precision munitions to Ukraine. US President Donald Trump urges Hamas to accept a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza.
Goa, a wild nature paradise, where over a third of the state remains wild today, and every corner is full of surprises. Goa's forests evolved through the seasons. Insects and crocodiles flourish in the monsoon, butterflies in the months after the rains subside, and in the winter, the jungle transforms into a haven for birds. Oh, there's a female right next to him. Oh my God, is that 8 otters? That's one of my favorite things about these forests. There are still so many secrets out there. Watch postcards from Goa on National Geographic.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Well, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held a very productive meeting of Quad Foreign Ministers meeting in Washington, D.C. Leaders of the grouping, comprising India, the United States, Australia and Japan, discussed ways to make Quad more focused and impactful on contemporary opportunities and challenges. Minister Jaishankar stated that the gathering will strengthen strategic stability in the Indo-Pacific and keep it free and open. Quad foreign ministers condemned unequivocally all the acts of terrorism and violent extremism in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border terrorism. In a joint statement issued by the US, India, Australia and Japan, the leaders renewed their commitment to counter-terrorism cooperation. The leaders condemned in the strongest terms the Pahalgam terrorist attack, calling for the perpetrators, organizers and financiers of the reprehensible act to be brought to justice without any delay. The leaders also urged all UN member states, in accordance with their obligations under international law and relevant UN SCRs, to cooperate actively with all relevant authorities in this regard. The ministers also announced key initiatives to strengthen maritime and transnational security, economic prosperity and security, critical and emerging technology, and support humanitarian assistance and emergency response across the region. They also announced the launch of the Quad Critical Minerals Initiative, an ambitious expansion of a partnership to strengthen economic security and collective resilience by collaborating on securing and diversifying critical mineral supply chain. And Jessica Taneja joins us with more. Good afternoon, Jessica. Now, Quad's condemnation comes at a very crucial time when India is all set to host the leaders later this year in India. What sort of a message it sends across the world, especially in reiterating India's stand against terrorism?
Well, it does in a sense strengthen India's voice when it comes to countering terrorism, not just in its neighborhood, but all around the world. This has been something that India has highlighted time and again, both multilateral forums as well as its other initiatives and groupings as well. And this one particularly being important because if you look at the joint statement, it doesn't particularly mention the Russia-Ukraine conflict or even the conflict in West Asia, but it does significantly mention the cross-border terrorism sponsored by certain states and the need to eliminate them, to stop funding them, also to check measures on how these countries gain access to fund such terrorist activities when it comes to the Pahalgam terrorist attack that we saw in April earlier this year. So certainly the message that India wanted to send out, a complete understanding of its particular stance on the fact that India has been at the receiving end of cross-border terrorism, and certainly the message it wanted to put out has been well received. Given the kind of conflicts we're seeing in the world, this one particularly needed to be highlighted in order to tell the world the kind of troubles it faces in its neighborhood, both from the West as well as on the other border fronts as well. So certainly an important moment for India that this does find a mention in the Quad statement, and this after much deliberation. And as you said, India is set to host the next Quad summit in India. It was supposed to host one next year, but you recall, because of Joe Biden's health conditions, etc., it was combined with the bilateral visit and the Quad summit was held in Delaware. But this year, certainly, there are high hopes that it will be held in India, and if all things go well, we could see Donald Trump here in India. But then again, we'll wait for those details to be finalized. But if the Quad summit does happen, it will be President Donald Trump, who you'd recall, who in fact put together this grouping to the leaders level. It was always, the group met at the foreign ministers level, but it was after Donald Trump's insistence that this Quad grouping gained more importance given the significance of our neighbor.
Also tell us about the Quad Critical Minerals Initiative that has been agreed during the foreign ministers meeting this time.
That's an interesting mention as well, because if you see what China has done in the recent past, it has put export control measures on rare earth and critical minerals, and that has been a concern for all the partners. We depend on those rare earth minerals from manufacturing batteries to powering our devices when it comes to chips. You talk about lithium for batteries, germanium, gallium. These are important rare earth minerals, and I could name more. And China not only controls, mining of these minerals, but it also has the technology and the proper wherewithal to mine those minerals, to be able to use them effectively in devices that you and I use on a daily basis, be it the automobile industry as well. You'd see back in India here as well, the EV industry is facing certain hurdles because of the unavailability of those rare earth minerals, and it's just not just India's auto industries, but many other industries have been affected widely because of the new measures that China has brought in. And certainly an important resolute supply chain where critical technology is used for even separation of those minerals and refining those minerals will be important for the world to come together, collaborate and build that technical machinery, because that will be the future of the world. The world will depend on AI, and for AI you'll need chips, and for chips you need rare earth minerals.
Jessica, for joining us and bringing us the latest with a rounded perspective. Moving on, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also held key bilateral meetings on the sidelines of Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. He held productive conversations on advancing the India-US defense partnership during his meeting with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
We believe that our defense partnership is today truly one of the most consequential pillars of the relationship. It's not built merely on shared interests, but we believe really deepening convergence and of capabilities, of responsibilities, and what we do in the Indo-Pacific we believe is absolutely crucial to its strategic stability. The world is a complicated place, I think perhaps growing in its complexity, and certainly our partnership and the contribution that we can make together, I think would be of immense importance, not just for us, I think, but for the larger region, I would even argue for the world.
Dr. S. Jaishankar also met his Australian and Japanese counterparts on the sidelines of Quad. External Affairs Minister said that he looks forward to welcoming Wong in India.
We marked the 5th anniversary of our comprehensive strategic partnership. We are very pleased to have Richard Marles over on that occasion. Our Prime Ministers met recently in Canada on the sidelines of the G7 outreach. That was a very good meeting. When I look at relationships which are both important and comfortable for us today, we've taken it to a level where if there's any issue, we immediately reach out to each other. We are also, I think, today trusting enough of each other that we discuss a lot of other issues, the state of the world. In many ways, that tells you really what the quality of our ties is about.
Moving on, French President Emmanuel Macron urged his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine in a first-ever talk held between the two leaders since the year 2022. Though the Russian leader blamed West for the conflict during the 2-hour-long telephonic conversation and said that any peace deal should be comprehensive and long-term, provide for the elimination of the root causes of the Ukrainian crisis and be based on new territorial realities. Putin also added that Western states had for many years ignored Russia's security interests and created an anti-Russian bridgehead in Ukraine. Other than Ukraine, the talks also focused on Iran, discussing Tehran's nuclear program, with Macron suggesting Moscow and Paris should work together to de-escalate the tensions. According to the statements, both the presidents agreed that the conflict over Iran's nuclear activities and other West Asian conflicts should be solved exclusively by diplomatic means and that the two leaders would continue contacts on this. though the Kremlin said that Putin has emphasized on the lawful right of Tehran in developing a civilian nuclear program. The Pentagon has halted some shipments of air defense missiles and other precision munitions to Ukraine over concerns that U.S. stockpiles are too low. The Pentagon's slowing of some weapons shipments promised to Kyiv under former President Joe Biden's administration occurred in recent days. Among the weapons that are being delayed are air defense interceptors that would help knock down inbound Russian drones and missiles and other munitions. All weapons aid was briefly paused in February, with a second longer pause in the month of March. The Trump administration resumed sending the last of the aid approved under Biden. Russia, which already controls about a fifth of Ukraine, continues to advance gradually, gaining grounds in recent weeks in Ukraine's southeastern regions of Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk and ramping up the air attacks nationwide. US President Donald Trump has asked Hamas to accept a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, stating that Israel has agreed to finalize such a deal. Now, Trump, in a post on social media, said his representatives had met with Israeli officials about the raging conflict ahead of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington, scheduled for next week, in which Trump said he would be very firm. Now, Trump said on Tuesday that he believed Netanyahu wanted to end hostilities in Gaza. Trump also said representatives of Qatar and Egypt, mediators in the conflict, would deliver this final proposal. In the month of March, a previous ceasefire deal collapsed when Israel launched fresh strikes on Gaza. The previous ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that started on the 19th of January was set up to have 3 stages but did not make it past the first stage. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday he was not thinking of extending for the 9th of July deadline for countries to negotiate trade deals with the US and continued to express doubt that an agreement could be reached with Japan. Trump suggested he could impose a tariff of 30 to 35% on imports from Japan, well above the 24% tariff he announced on the 2nd of April and then later paused. The Trump administration plans to prioritize securing trade deals with countries, including India, ahead of Japan in the days leading up to the 9th of July deadline when higher US tariffs take effect. In Australia's biggest breach in years, its airline Qantas witnessed a major cyber attack that exposed personal data of up to 6 million customers. Hackers accessed a third-party system containing names, emails, phone numbers and birthdays, but no credit card or passport information. The airline says flight operations were not affected and has reported the breach to Australia's cybersecurity coordinator. Now, last week, the US Federal Bureau of Investigation said cybercrime group Scattered Spider was targeting the airlines, with Hawaiian Airlines and Canada's WestJet already reporting breaches. Qantas has so far did not name any of the group. Qantas's share price was down 3.3% by mid-session trade against a flat overall market. And now let's take a look at what else is making news around the world in brief. Gospel star singer Kirk Franklin steps into a fresh role as a host of 10 of Kings, a digital show that serves up faith, food and real talk all in one, and with his newfound spiritual tour guide. Teaming up with Insignia Assets, he guides emerging artists and cooks up new sounds for fans. Hong Kong is rapidly enhancing itself as a global events hub. In the first half of the current year, Hong Kong has already hosted 93 major events across sports, culture, tourism, etc. The Kai Tak Sports Park has become a key venue, with the city also strengthening ties within the Greater Bay Area and gearing up for National Games 2025. BTS, the most popular K-pop group consisting of 7 members, have been reunited after completing South Korea's mandatory military service. During their live stream, their leader RM announced that BTS will head to the United States in the month of July to start working on their first full-length album since 2020. They plan to launch it early next year ahead of a world tour. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on the other side. Exiled Tibetan leader Dalai Lama announces succession plans. No link found between COVID-19 vaccines and the surge of sudden deaths due to heart attacks among adults. And after the break, we'll get you the latest weather update from India and across the world. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching the India News Hour. Time now to quickly recap the top headlines of the hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to touchdown Ghana today as part of his FiveNation visit, exchange of historical ties and opening up of new windows of cooperation in various sectors on the agenda. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar successfully concludes Quad Foreign Ministers meeting, announces launch of Quad Critical Minerals Initiative, leaders condemn Pahalgam terror attack, calls for justice. Australian airline Qantas investigates a significant cyber attack. Hackers infiltrate system containing sensitive personal data on 6 million customers. Qantas says no impact on safety or operations. And in sports, India all set to take on England in second of the 5-match test series at Edgbaston in Birmingham. While India and Ghana relations have traditionally been warm and friendly, resting on solid foundations anchored in shared values and common vision, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the West African country reinforces shared commitment to continuity and deepening of bilateral ties. DD India correspondent Taposh Bhattacharya gives us details from Accra. Take a look.
India and Ghana share warm, time-tested ties built on common democratic values and a shared vision for development. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ghana from July 2nd to 3rd is not just symbolic, it's a strategic move to reinforce South-South cooperation. This is the first high-level visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 30 years, signaling a renewed focus on Africa.
There will be delegation-level talks, during which the bilateral relations will be reviewed and also discuss various ways to strengthen and deepen bilateral relations. Honorable Prime Minister will have a one-on-one meeting with his counterpart. Then there will be a banquet dinner in honor of Honorable Prime Minister. The next day, Prime Minister will be addressing the Parliament, and he also will be interacting with the Indian community there, which is about 15,000 in number.
Trade and investment and development cooperation are the key pillars of India-Ghana relations. Leaders from both nations are expected to explore new areas for collaboration with a strong focus on economic growth and inclusive partnership. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also address Ghana's parliament in this trip.
During the visit, there will be few focus items. Will be agriculture, where the Ghanaian leader, the president, is keen to engage with India. He is also keen on the vaccine development, creating a vaccine hub in Ghana, for not just Ghana, but also the West Africa context. Defense cooperation will become an important item on the agenda, and the critical minerals and the digital public infrastructure.
Prime Minister Modi's visit aims to elevate bilateral cooperation across strategic sectors and reaffirm India's commitment to the global south. The visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi aims to deepen ties across key sectors including economy, energy, defense and development cooperation, marking a significant diplomatic push in Ghana and a common vision for both India and Ghana for the global south. With camera person Rakesh, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Accra, Ghana.
And now let's get you more on this with a rounded perspective as I'm now joined by Ms. Ruchita Berry, who's the Senior Fellow from VIF. Good afternoon, Ms. Berry. Thank you so much for joining us at this broadcast. Well, talking about this visit, this is the first bilateral at prime ministerial level that will be unfolding in almost 3 decades between India and Ghana. And India has always been very vocal in strengthening the voice of the global south. And we saw that when India hosted the G20 summit too. What is the strategic and economic importance of this very particular visit?
Thank you for inviting me. This is a very important visit that Prime Minister is making to Ghana. This is taking place at the Prime Minister level after 3 decades. So it's extremely important that India reconnects with this leading country in West Africa, which is also an important partner for India in the African Union, in the context of African Union, and also the ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African States. So it is important that India reconnects with Ghana, a leading economy and a leading regional power in West Africa, with whom India has had traditional close relations.
And also when we talk about it, you would remember that India was the first one to recognize Ghana as a significant partner during its independence struggle as well. And from its independence till now, the relations have always been very warm, but now is the time to flourish it even further. And not only Prime Minister Modi will meet and greet the Indian diaspora in Ghana, but will also speak at Ghana's parliament. How such of the act place India at the diplomatic global map?
Yeah, so see, India has been over the years trying to take the cause of the global south in various fora, whether it's the UN or the G20, where India brought in African Union to the G20 forum. So India has been championing the cause of global south, and Ghana is an important partner in Africa, with whom we have shared values, and so together we would be talking with the Ghanaian government in terms of taking this partnership forward in bringing the global south together in its struggle for recognition, for getting a greater voice of the global south across the world in various international fora. So that's one. And the other is, it's also important that India has had close bilateral ties with Ghana, both in terms of development cooperation and also in terms of security cooperation. So India would like to enhance its relations with Ghana in these 2 areas.
And also when we talk about it, and you just mentioned that Ghana is also a key member of the Economic Community of West African States, which is ECOWAS, which is a regional bloc of 15 countries. How this particular visit will strengthen India's greater access to West Africa?
Yeah, so since Ghana is a leading country in West Africa, building greater ties with Ghana would definitely enhance India's presence in the larger West African region, which is a growing region, which has mineral-rich countries, countries with large economic and natural resources, which are some of them which are very important for us in terms of the energy transition, the green transition that the world is moving towards. And also, since India is an energy deficit country, is looking for partners to collaborate both in terms of the hydrocarbon sector and in terms of the renewable sector, and Ghana provides an opportunity. So I would say that Ghana would become a gateway to West Africa for India.
So much, Ms. Berry, for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ghana, its strategic, economic and political importance. Thank you. Moving on. Exiled Tibetan leader Dalai Lama has announced his succession plan, in which he said that the 600-year-old institution will continue after his death. He said that the responsibility for identifying the 15th Dalai Lama will rest exclusively with the Garden Podrang Trust. Well, he is the 14th reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, and his statement was released ahead of his 90th birthday, which is scheduled to take place on the 6th of July. He was speaking during the 15th Tibetan Religious Conference. The Dalai Lama was not physically present at the conference, but attendees watched him deliver his video statement. This decision will have profound impact on his Buddhist followers. It ended years of waiting by the followers of Tibetan Buddhist spiritual leader for details about his succession. Moving on. While no link has been found between COVID-19 vaccinations and the surge of sudden deaths due to heart attacks among the adults, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare said on Wednesday that studies by the Indian Council of Medical Research and National Centre for Disease Control affirm that COVID-19 vaccines in India are safe and effective, with extremely rare instances of serious side effects. These studies have conclusively established that sudden cardiac deaths can result from a wide range of factors including genetics, lifestyle, pre-existing conditions and post-COVID complications. To explore this, 2 complementary studies were undertaken using different research approaches, one based on past data and another involving real-time investigation. The Government of India thus remains committed to evidence-based public health research to protect the well-being of its citizens. The first batch of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra 2025 pilgrims successfully returned to Gangtok after completing their sacred pilgrimage to Mount Kailash and Mansarovar. The pilgrims expressed their gratitude and happiness, feeling blessed for completing the yatra under the care of the liaison officer and the organizing team. They thanked the government for providing them with a comfortable stay, warm hospitality and nutritious sattvic meals. All yatris were presented with yatra completion certificates by the ACS Tourism Department. The first batch yatri will be returning to their respective states today, carrying cherished memories of their sacred pilgrimage and the warmth of Sikkim's hospitality. Weather updates now. A widespread spell of heavy to very heavy rainfall is set to sweep across large swathes of India over the next 6 to 7 days, with weathermen flagging heightened flood risk in central and northern India. Himachal Pradesh has experienced heavy rainfall in past 3 days, and in 3 days it has caused havoc in Mandi. According to the report, 5 deaths have been reported and 15 people are still missing. In another incident, the heaviest damage from the rains on 30th of June and the 1st of July has occurred in Siraj. The situation has worsened to such an extent that even within a radius of 1 kilometer, there is no knowledge of what is happening. Roads, electricity and mobile connectivity have been completely cut off. The Mandi district administration is also unable to receive accurate updates from the area. According to unconfirmed sources, around 100 houses and shops have been razed and many people are missing. All roads in the subdivision have been washed away at several places. Almost all the bridges have collapsed. Electricity and water supply systems have been destroyed. The Met Department has issued orange alert for 3 districts. Keeping the current condition in mind, administration and SDRF are on high alert. In North India's Uttarkashi district, work is underway on a war footing to restore Yamunotri National Highway at the earliest. Heavy machinery is being used to carry out operations. The district magistrate remains stationed in disaster-affected areas to oversee relief efforts and restoration work. The national highway is still not open for vehicular movement, but with the help of a security personnel, pilgrims stranded on the Yamunotri side are being evacuated via foot. Around 50% of the pilgrims have been rescued and taken to safer locations. All departmental teams deployed on site have been instructed to carry out their duties with full sensitivity and alertness. A dangerous and unrelenting heat wave is sweeping across Europe, triggering health warnings, school closures and the shutdown of major landmarks. France, United Kingdom, Germany and several other countries are facing extreme conditions more typical of late summer, which has put everybody at risk.
Europe is battling an intense early summer heat wave with temperatures soaring to dangerous levels across the continent. France has issued its first red alert in 5 years, forcing nearly 2,000 schools to close early. Public events were restricted due to extreme heat. Cooling centers were opened in Paris and Bordeaux as temperatures reached 40 degrees Celsius. Iconic sites like the Eiffel Tower and Brussels Atomium were closed. The World Meteorological Organization has warned that everybody is at risk in this early season heat wave.
What is exceptional, and I would stress exceptional but not unprecedented, is the time of year. You know, we are 1st of July and we are seeing episodes of extreme heat which normally we would see later on. Why is it happening? Various reasons. One of them is that sea surface temperatures in the Mediterranean are exceptionally high for this time of year. It's the equivalent of a land heat wave.
In the United Kingdom, rising heat has dried up reservoirs and pushed people to rivers and lakes with temperatures surpassing 30 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere in Europe, countries are struggling to adapt. Health advisories have also been issued in Spain, Portugal, Italy and the Netherlands. In Turin, Italy, children cooled off in public fountains as temperatures climbed to 40 degrees. While in Germany, construction workers and street vendors faced similar challenges in 37 degrees heat. The United Nations has described these conditions as exceptional, more typical of late summer. Scientists continue to warn that climate change, driven by fossil fuel emissions, is intensifying these patterns. With conditions expected to persist through the week, calls for urgent climate action are growing louder across the continent. The Tanshuka Ships report for TD India.
Moving on. Now, ever since Donald Trump took over the White House for a second term, US markets have had a hard time, while European markets are doing better than ever. But does that reflect the economic reality on either side of the Atlantic? Some new numbers suggest otherwise. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin. Lars, good afternoon. What can you tell us about it?
Indeed, looking at the latest numbers here provided by economic researchers keeping track of global companies' revenues, their profit, and last and most certainly not least, their share price, so performance on the stock market. Now, looking at these numbers, we can see that despite what markets are showing, US companies are actually far outperforming European companies. Let me give you some numbers. We're looking at the 500 biggest companies on either side of the Atlantic. Those in the US have seen their profits rise 1.5% over the past year to an all-time high of 1.3 trillion euros. The 500 largest companies in Europe, however, have seen their combined profit drop by around 5% to 616 billion euros. That's less than half the money those US giants are raking in. It's really interesting to see these numbers in the midst of a global trade war started by the US, but the economists here are pointing out that the US domestic economy is still going pretty well, good for 87.5% of all profits there, whereas the domestic economy in Europe, and specifically in Germany, of course, is still lagging.
But Lars, how come this discrepancy is not reflected in markets at all, and where is this trend going?
Well, that's the old story about markets and how the economy, or more precisely, how companies are valued amongst investors. In Europe, valuations are much lower, so even modest growth in revenues and profits are good for the share price to rise by a few percentage points. In the US, however, markets have been overvalued for a long time. In fact, for the past 5 years or so, US markets have seen a tremendous run, while their problems just started recently, again, when Trump took the White House. And then, of course, when he tore up global trade and spread all that uncertainty that we've been dealing with recently. As for where we're getting with all this, it seems this discrepancy will keep growing rather than easing. Looking at the most recent corporate numbers for the past 3 months, we're seeing that US companies are looking at profits 17% higher, and it's only been 5.5% in Europe. So US firms seem to simply grow faster right now.
And Lars, how is that possible given the trade issues that we've seen over the past few months?
Well, it helps to look at who the strongest players are in the US economy. It's, of course, the extremely profitable tech giants, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and Nvidia. They alone are behind profits of 441 billion euros, So looking at those totals that I've given you earlier, that's about a third of what the top 500 US companies are making. And it's way more than 2/3 of what all the European companies are making. Again, we're talking about these 6 companies alone. Now, their products and services are extremely crisis resistant. These companies are global leaders in their field, and that props up their business in times of a trade war too, and it helps support their country's total, of course, as well. European companies, however, there's not really a lot of tech giants here. Obviously not a single one that could even hold a candle to the top 6 in the US that I just mentioned. Here we have more production, more industry, and more reliance on global trade, and that's obviously been a tricky field as of late.
All right, thank you so much, Lars, for joining us from Berlin and giving us a rounded perspective on the latest development. Moving on. European shares edged higher on Wednesday, led by banks, while investors assess the prospects for trade deals ahead of US President Donald Trump's July the 9th tariff deadline. The pan-European stock 600 opens new tab advanced 0.3% at 541.91 points as of 8:18 GMT. Other major regional indices also traded higher. The US dollar remained weak, nearing a 3.5-year low, with the euro at $1.1794 and yen at 143.66. Fed Chair Powell reiterated a patient approach to rate cuts despite market pricing in 64 bps cuts in 2025. Asian markets wavered Wednesday as US President Donald Trump ruled out extending the 9th of July tariff deadline, sparking renewed trade war fears. Tokyo's Nikkei dropped again after Trump criticized Japan over auto and rice trade, warning of tariffs of up to 35%. Most Asian bourses slipped, including Shanghai, Mumbai and Jakarta, while Hong Kong and Sydney edged higher. Indian benchmark indices opened with a little change on Wednesday and have since slipped into the red. Market sentiment remains cautious amid global uncertainty and mixed cues from Asian markets. India's Kharif sowing has surged 11.3% year-on-year, driven by a 47.3% increase in rice and 37.2% jump in pulses, signaling a positive food inflation outlook for the year 2025, as per ICICI Bank's report. Monsoon rainfall vital for Kharif crop hit 109% of the long period average in June, slightly above the IMD's 108% forecast. Key agricultural states like Rajasthan, Gujarat and Punjab saw above average rainfall, while Bihar and Telangana faced the deficit. Northwest India led with 42% above the LPA, but South India lagged at 3% below. With only 10 of 36 subdivisions reporting deficient rainfall and July is forecast at 106% of LPA, Kharif sowing prospects remain robust. Moving on to sports now, India head into the second test against England at Edgbaston with history stacked against them. Now 8 matches, 7 defeats and no victories. But under the young leadership of Shubman Gill, the team is looking forward to bounce back from a heartbreaking loss at Leeds. TD India correspondent Narayan Singh brings us a preview of the second test match. Take a look.
Sometimes in cricket, as in life, even a sky full of centuries can't chase away the storm of missed chances. Team India, under the young leadership of Shubman Gill, now stares at a mountain they have never climbed before. A test win at Edgbaston, a venue that has troubled Indian cricket for decades. India has played 8 test matches here at Edgbaston. 7 times they have walked away and defeated. Just once, way back in 1986, they managed a draw against the England side. A win, still a dream, but this team has turned dreams into reality before on multiple occasions. In the first test at Leeds, India made history, not the kind they wanted. 5 centuries, yes, 5, and still they lost. Never before a team, after scoring that many hundreds, ended up on the losing side. Dropped catches, especially 4 by Yashasvi Jaiswal, allowed this England team to claw their way back in the match. Also, there is a growing support for wrist spinner Kuldeep Yadav to come into the playing 11. But India's assistant coach Ryan Tan Dashkote dropped strong hints that Nitish Kumar Reddy and Washington Sundar have good chance of making the cut in the team. But he added that technically Bumrah is available and the management haven't made a decision whether he is going to play or not in the second test match. It will be decided in the last minute. Talking about the England side, they are going in with an unchanged squad. That means no Jofra Archer. He remains out due to some family emergency despite returning to squad after 4 long years. Expect the Edgbaston surface to live up to its reputation, pace and bounce early, especially on day 1 and 2. If the sky remains overcast, the Duke's ball will dance. Seamers will rule the morning spells and top order battles will need nerves of steel to handle those sessions. Yes, the task is uphill. Yes, the venue has been unkind, but remember, fighting back is in India's DNA. We have seen it in Melbourne, at Lord's, and countless other times when the world counted India out.
Of Amarnath pilgrims has reached Kazigand, where they received grand and heartfelt welcome upon arrival. Devotees were greeted with showers of flowers and garlands, marking a gesture of devotion and communal harmony as the annual pilgrimage commenced with enthusiasm and reverence. The 40-day-long Sri Amarnath Yatra 2025 culminates on the 9th of August. Lakhs of devotees trekked through the Himalayan terrain to pay obeisance at the Holy Cave Shrine in Anantnag district of South Kashmir. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Up next, an exclusive show on the India versus England Test Series. Thanks for joining us. Namaskar.
$10 लाख की लॉटरी मुझे, वाओ!
फर्जी ऑफर्स से सावधान।
RBI कहता है
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।